Hello YouTubers, new video requested by one of you. Again regarding the Cessna 172, this time it's an overview of the instrumentation, the analog instrumentation in English. So let's get on board. Here we are, analog instrumentation, so the classic 172, the one I like the most. Okay, I'm going to go through all the instruments and controls of this aircraft. We're going to see together what they are for and a little description and a few details without going in too deep. First thing first, we want to start the aircraft so that the battery won't drain. First thing we have to do, even though this is not a tutorial about starting the airplane, but since we're here, circuit breakers all in and switches all off, key is off, battery alternator off, throttle lever and mixture lever all back. This is idle and lean, flaps up, fuel valve on, parking brake set, avionics switches off, and also this circuit breaker, those and those all in. Okay, battery on, light test. First thing we are interested into right after engine start is the oil pressure. Okay, nav light on, beacon on, fuel pump, magnetos right, left, both, clear prop, left and right are clear. My bad, mixture reach, throttle open 1 inch, again, oil pressure in the green, 1000 RPM. Alright, alternator on, you see the bolt light disappears, avionics switches 1 and 2. Okie doke. Let's now talk about what we see here on the panel from left to right. First thing here is the thermometer, outside air temperature in Fahrenheit and Celsius. Outside is 43 Fahrenheit, and that's, I don't know, it's probably the volts. Okay, the volts are, yeah, probably the volts of the battery. Then we have the clock, UTC, local time, flight time, elapsed time. That we can start with this button here, but it doesn't seem like we can stop it. Actually, we can stop it, but I don't think we can reset it. Yeah, it looks like we can't reset this clock. We can only start it and stop it. Okay, this is our registration number, also called tail number. It's like the car plate. Airspeed indicator. It takes ram air from the pitot tube, which is this little thing here. Capture the air pressure and translate it into airspeed in knots, which is miles an hour. Arcs. Arcs are indicating characteristic speeds and speed ranges for the aircraft. Bottom line of the white arc is minimum speed or stall speed with full flaps. Top part is maximum speed with full flaps extended. Green line, minimum speed with flaps up. Green is the speed range in turbulent air, and yellow range is speed that we can use into calm air. The red line is the VNE, velocity never exceed. So basically is our max speed. Moving on to the right, ADI, Attitude Deviation Indicator. It provides us with an artificial horizon when the visibility is reduced, like inside the clouds. It has a gyroscope behind that, once spinning, keeps its axis rotation, and if it's zeroed when we are wings level, like on the ground, then will provide us with a wing level reference point or reference plane, no matter what the attitude of the aircraft is. This scale here is for bank angle. This scale here is for pitch angle, up and down, of course, and this is left and right. This orange mark is just a reference mark, and this is our aircraft symbol that we can adjust. This instrument works with vacuum. That's why we have a vacuum indicator gauge here. If the engine is off, this indicator will be 0 and the ADI will not work. Okay, moving on to the right, altimeter, barometric instrument that provides us with an altitude information in regards to a pressure level. When we set it to 0, what we basically did was to select the pressure at the airport level, and we are at 0 feet versus that level because we are at the airport. Usually, and that's called the QFE, Quebec Foxtrot Echo. Usually we take from the tower or from the ATIS, Automatic Terminal Information System, the pressure calculated at sea level at our geographical location, and that should provide us with the elevation of the airport when we are parked on the airport, in this case 150 feet. So in standard air, this should be the pressure at the mean sea level. Once we fly above the transition altitude, we should use the standard QNE, which is 1013, pretty much that, and that will provide every aircraft with a standard altimeter setting that doesn't change geographically. Therefore we can fly around the world and always be equally separated from other traffic. Alright, down here, the turn and sleep indicator. It uses DC electric. In fact, if we turn off the alternator and the battery, then since there is no source, we'll see an off light. So it's two instruments in one. One is the turn instrument, and the other one is the sleep instrument. So the first one on the shape of the aircraft is telling us not if our wings are banking left or right, as logic would dictate, but it's telling us whether our heading is changing in time. So if the aircraft is leaning to the left and the wing goes in the first mark, it means that our heading is changing by 3 degrees a second. The sleep indicator here, the ball, also called the ball, is a ball free floating into a fluid. Whenever we're not flying with the longitudinal axis parallel to the stream of wind, this free ball will move and will be dragged sideways. In order to straighten our fuselage for aerodynamical reason, that's what the ball is for, to optimize the aerodynamic of the aircraft movement through the air. We need to put the ball back to the center, and we do that with associated rudder input through the rudder pedals. So if the ball goes to the right, it means we are slipping to the left. We add right rudder pedal pressure to displace the rudder on the tail of the aircraft to the right. That will make the aircraft nose turn to the right, and the ball will come back. The logic is the foot kicks the ball. So if the ball is right foot, and that's it. So this instrument here gives us the same information as the compass. The magnetic compass tells us our magnetic direction in reference to the cardinal axis, north, east, south, west, and all the degrees in between. It is the same information, but it's gyro stabilized, so it doesn't have all the errors that the compass has. The problem is it needs to be updated with data coming from the compass every now and then, usually 15 minutes. It is a heading bug and can just be a mark for ourselves, or when coupled to an autopilot, which is here, it provides the autopilot with the heading direction. So if we fly heading with autopilot and we select 330, then the aircraft is gonna fly 330. Vertical speed indicator, vertical velocity of the aircraft in hundreds of feet per minute. Every mark is 100 feet per minute. This 500 is 1000 climbing, 500, 1000 descending. Alright, engine instruments, left and right fuel tanks in gallons, exhaust gas temperature, fuel flow, temperature and pressure of the oil, vacuum used for the spinning the gyroscope, and amps to see whether we are charging the battery or not, and whether the alternator is working or not. If we turn it off, now we are discharging the battery and goes back. Circuit breakers. Circuit breakers are like the fuses that we use in the car, but the fuse in the car, in case of a short circuit, will melt and needs to be replaced. These ones instead, in case of a short circuit, they will simply pop, and we have the ability to just reset it by pushing the button back in. Okay, down here, RPM, the speed revolution of the engine. That's 1000 revolution per minute. Green arc, normal range in the air. Red line, RPM value not to exceed. Ops meter, it takes into account the hours the engine has been running for maintenance purposes. Navigation instruments, Cdi1, Cdi2, ADF. Cdi1 is coupled to nav1 frequencies that we can change this way and swap. Cdi2 is coupled with nav2 frequencies that we can. First we need to push this button here to move across from COM to nav frequencies. Then we put the frequency we want and we swap it from standby to active on these Garmin displays. The difference between the top one and the bottom one is the presence here of the glide slope indicator. Flags means we are not receiving any valid signals from these frequencies. We can change the reference radio here and there. This panel here shows what kind of navigation source we're using. Now is nav, means that this instrument is taking information from these frequencies. If we go GPS, we're taking information via the flight plan if we have one loaded. ADF, okay, let me go back. The CDI takes information if in nav mode from these frequencies, which are frequencies of VOR stations on the ground. The ADF, when associated with a valid frequency here, takes navigation information from an NDB station on the ground. The crown around is not synced, so it doesn't turn as we turn, so it has to be updated all the time. So if we're flying 300, provided it's the same here, and in this case it isn't, so let's go and correct it. So 120, okay, now it is synchronized with the compass more or less, and then we have to do the same here. But while these will automatically turn as we turn, it only needs to be updated every 15 minutes, this one will not. And therefore every time we change our heading, in order to have proper bearing information to the station or from the station, we have to update the crown manually ourselves. Anything else here? No. Okay, communication panel, hardly ever used in simulation. We can choose which COM frequency to listen to. We can also listen to the broadcasted identification Morse code of nav1, nav2 on ADF 1 and 2, and these ADF 1 and 2 frequencies. Garmin panels, the GPS, it's too complex to explain here. In general, we have a moving map, COM frequency, nav frequency. We can swap COMs here, swap navs there, change values that way, and if we swap, we can change value down here. Maybe if you want, I will do another tutorial on this one, not a problem. This is like a simplified non-graphical version of the same to give us steering information with bearing DMEs and stuff. Classic transponder, once we are given a code from the air traffic controller and we set it here, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and we turn it on, the air traffic controller will see on his radar screen a dot that symbolizes our aircraft position, and if we hit Alt as well, he will also see our altitude. If the controller asks us to identify ourselves, we can press ident, and our icon on the screen will blip for a few seconds. This is the autopilot panel. Once we engage the autopilot, we can tell the autopilot to fly the heading, to track a radial, to fly an approach, that means localize or glide slope, and keep an altitude, or fly a rate of climb or descent. That's the autopilot disconnect. Warning tone. ELT, electronic locator transmitter. It's a radio that can only broadcast the signal on a given frequency. When we have an impact, basically when we crash the aircraft, it will automatically activate and send a distress signal on 121.5, which is the international emergency frequency. The signal sent is a Morse code that symbolizes the 3 letters SOS. And now the ops meter, which I believe is exactly the same as this one here. Again, to keep track of the hours we have been running the engine for maintenance purposes. Flaps. Flaps extension in degrees, 10, 20 and full. If we go outside, these are the flaps, fully extended. and back up. Okay. Mixture. If we pull this red lever, we're gonna lean the mixture. The purpose of this is when we climb at high altitude, the air gets less dense, more thin, and the ratio between fuel and air gets richer. Too much fuel, too little air. So the engine, the fuel will not burn properly within the piston. So we need to lean it to re-establish the proper ratio between fuel and oxygen to regain a proper combustion within the engine. We start to do that from 3,000 feet and up. Static air, alternate source. If our static ports that are outside the aircraft gets clogged, usually because of ice, by pulling this little lever, we can take static air from inside the aircraft. It's not ideal, but it's a plan B. It's a throttle to increase or decrease the power of the engine. Obviously, these are rheostats to dim or brighten the light inside the aircraft. Radio light and panel is probably here, and glare shield is like a generic light. It's only visible at night. Avionics switches, we already spoke about those before. Let's go through all the lights. Fuel pump, actually that can be turned off after you start the engine. Beacon light. This is the rotating beacon light. The logic of the use of the beacon light is you start it, you turn it on before you start the engine, and you turn it back off after you switched it off. What it's telling to the people around the aircraft is that you are about to start the engine, and then the second scenario is that the engine is running. So the logic of the beacon is associated to the engine. Nav light, these are the three lights around the edges of the aircraft. Left, red on the left, green on the right, white on the tail. Let's have a look. Red on the left, white on the tail, green on the right. Okay, these are the two lights that are always on. The nav light goes on as soon as you turn on the battery. It's telling people around the aircraft that the aircraft is manned. There is someone inside the aircraft and the aircraft is electrically powered. Landing light and taxi light. Let's go and have a look outside. Okay. To your right means to the left of the airplane you have the landing light, and the one next to it is the taxi light. What's the difference? They seem to be identical, but they aren't. The taxi light is pointed horizontally to look forward of the aircraft. The landing light is tilted downwards a few degrees to compensate for the body angle of the aircraft upon landing. Strobe light. Strobe light is used to make the aircraft more visible when you're flying. It is turned on entering the runway for the purpose of takeoff, and it's turned off after we vacate the runway. Bright flashing light at the tip of the wing. Moving down here, we have the parking brake. We have the trim here, the trim wheel. trim wheel moves a little compensator at the horizontal stabilizer in order to force a fixed position of the elevator itself for the purpose of neutralizing forces that are acting on the lateral axis of the aircraft, basically on the pitch of the aircraft, that we can feel on our hands when we're flying at this airspeed we're not being trimmed for. During takeoff has to be in the middle. Once we are in the air, if we feel any force pushing the nose down or up, by turning this wheel we can zero those forces, find a new aerodynamical equilibrium, so that if we let go on the controls, the aircraft is just gonna fly with a fixed pitch. I'm not gonna get into more details, even if there is a lot more to say about that. Okay, this is the hand mic, not simulated in this iteration of the Cessna 172, because this is a default aircraft. If it's used, if you don't have headset or your headsets are broken, you can use this hand mic to talk with air traffic controller. Fuel valve to cut the fuel. If I pull it now, the engine will quit. Fuel tank selector, left, both, right. Anything else to say? I don't think so. I think we covered it all. I hope this was useful to you. If you have any questions, you can put them on the comment field below. If you like this video, please do put a like to it. I do not advise you to subscribe to this channel because my content are mostly in another language, but if you want to do that, feel free. So that's it for the classic Cessna 172 analog layout, instrument layout review. Thank you for having been with me in the aircraft for a while, and see you next time. Bye bye.